Tom Simmons brings doctoral-level sermon coaching to clergy nationwide. Tom Simmons was not always sure he was cut out for the pulpit. After seminary, he sidestepped the call entirely, enlisting as a machine gunner in the 116th Infantry Battalion and later working as a staffer on Capitol Hill. That was more than 2 decades ago. Today, Reverend Tom Simmons serves as rector of St. Peter's Episcopal Church in Purcellville, Virginia, a post he has held since 2002, and has quietly built a second vocation that extends his reach well beyond his own congregation. Through a practice he calls the sermon coach, Simmons works one-on-one with clergy across denominations, helping them rediscover what drew them to the pulpit in the first place. The work is methodical, relational, and grounded in nearly 30 years of preaching experience backed by serious academic training. It is also, by accounts from those who have gone through it, genuinely effective. The work did not begin as a business idea. It began as a personal crisis. Several years into his tenure at St. Peter's, Simmons found himself doing exactly what he warned other preachers against: going through the motions. "I wanted to do my very best work proclaiming the word of the Lord, but felt stuck," he says. "I was investing the time, but not getting the results." He tried the usual remedies: books, conferences, listening to great preachers. None of it moved the needle in any lasting way. What finally did was a Doctor of Ministry program in preaching at Gordon-Conwell Theological Seminary, where he studied under Haddon Robinson, widely regarded as one of the most influential homiletics scholars of the 20th century. Simmons earned that degree in 2017. The doctoral work changed him. It also changed how he thought about helping others. A formal D.Min. program is not accessible to most working clergy, and Simmons knew it. So his research turned toward what else might work. What he found, backed by both academic study and his own experience, was that a sustained coaching relationship was not only effective but could be made practically available to preachers who could never take a sabbatical semester at seminary. That finding gave shape to the sermon coach. A framework built on questions, not critique. The model Simmons developed runs over the course of 1 year, with 2 coaching sessions per month. It is not a critique service. He is not there to redline a manuscript or rank a pastor's delivery on a scale of 1 to 10. The distinction matters to him. Real coaching, as he understands it, means asking questions instead of handing down answers. The framework draws on the work of Edgar Schein, Professor Emeritus of Management at MIT, whose research on organizational consulting Simmons found translatable to the pulpit context. "All my teaching and consulting experience has taught me that what builds a relationship, what solves problems, what moves things forward is asking the right questions," Schein has written, a principle Simmons has embedded at the center of his coaching practice. Clients who have worked through the year-long program describe something that sounds like a kind of permission. One, identified as Dave, put it plainly, "I've enjoyed the sense of being empowered to be a better preacher," he says. "You ask lots of good questions without jumping in and telling me how to do something. It's been a real clarifying process for me, and you've made that possible by not evaluating my preaching, but motivating and empowering. It makes it fun for me to preach, and be excited about the changes I'm making." How Tom Simmons built a coaching method from the ground up. The academic foundation Simmons brought to sermon coaching is not incidental. His M.Div. came from Westminster Seminary in 1993. His M.A. in Christian education followed at Virginia Seminary in 1998, the same year he was ordained. The D.Min. from Gordon-Conwell, completed under Robinson's mentorship, gave him both the research framework and the institutional credibility to develop and teach a coaching methodology grounded in homiletics scholarship, not just pastoral intuition. Robinson's influence runs through the program's DNA. Known for his work on expository preaching and what he called big idea sermon construction, Robinson trained generations of preachers to think with precision about what a sermon is actually trying to do. Simmons absorbed that discipline and then asked a harder question. Once a preacher understands the theory, Why do so many still feel stuck? His conclusion was that knowledge alone is rarely the bottleneck. The bottleneck is usually internal, and coaching is designed to address it. The outcomes he points to are specific. Preachers who complete the program report reduced stress in sermon preparation. They describe seeing more in the biblical text and leaning less on secondary commentaries. Several say the preparation process itself becomes faster and more generative. They report being able to articulate their own values more clearly from the pulpit, speaking in ways that land more relevantly with their specific congregations. And the people in the pews, more than one client has noted, tend to notice the difference before the preacher does. The coaching relationship and what sets it apart. What distinguishes the model Simmons runs is its flexibility combined with its duration. A single conference session or a stack of books on preaching can plant ideas. A year of structured, relational coaching is designed to do something harder: develop new habits. The twice-monthly rhythm creates enough contact to build genuine trust and enough spacing to let real work happen in between sessions. That interval is not dead time. It is where the shifts actually occur. Simmons draws a clear line between coaching and consulting. A consultant diagnoses and prescribes. A coach, as he defines the role, creates conditions in which the client does the diagnosing. The power of the approach, he argues, is precisely that the preacher arrives at his or her own solutions. That ownership is what makes change stick. There is no universal curriculum. The coaching adapts to wherever a given preacher is. Someone who has been preaching for 20 years and feels creatively exhausted needs something different from someone 2 years in who is still developing a stable preparation process. The structure accommodates both, and that range is by design. Client Ann described the experience simply: "It's a really great way to improve, or change your preaching style. It worked for me." That simplicity is the point. The method does not require a preacher to blow up their existing approach or adopt someone else's style. It works within what is already there, clearing away the noise so the preacher can hear themselves think again. A background that shaped the work before Tom Simmons ever stood behind a pulpit, he carried an M60 and answered phones for members of Congress. The Army and Capitol Hill are not the most obvious preparation for a career in pastoral ministry, but Simmons does not treat them as detours. They shaped a particular kind of leader, one comfortable with institutions, accustomed to operating under pressure, and practical in how he thinks about problems. His community footprint in Loudoun County reflects that same range. He has served as chaplain for the Purcellville Volunteer Rescue Squad and sat on the board of Inova Loudoun Hospital. He served on the board of Coaching Mission International, a nonprofit providing coaching services to frontline missionaries. He teaches woodworking shop class to 7th graders at the Good Shepherd School in Loudoun County. Outside of ministry, his woodworking practice, a side business called Creation in Wood, produces furniture, interiors, toys, and cabinetry. He and his wife Danielle have expanded into furniture refinishing and are currently outfitting a new shop with restored century-old machinery. What comes next for Tom Simmons and the sermon coach? A 12-week sabbatical in 2026 is giving Simmons space to reassess how he wants to deploy his gifts in the years ahead. With more than 2 decades at St. Peter's behind him and a coaching practice that has already demonstrated measurable results, he is thinking carefully about reach and sustainability. A podcast is in development, and Simmons has been direct about his intentions. He wants to get back to teaching, extend his voice beyond Sunday mornings, and build a wider audience for ideas he has spent decades refining in real parish life. The sermon coach practice fits that same impulse. It is, at its core, a learning relationship. One preacher, one coach, over a year's worth of sessions, working through questions that unlock what is already there. For clergy who have quietly wondered whether what they do on Sunday morning could be sharper, more alive, more theirs, and who have tried the conferences and the books, but still keep ending up in the same place, Tom Simmons is offering something harder to find. Not advice. Not a formula. A process built on the conviction that the best preaching a pastor has in them has yet to be developed and proclaimed.